Yeah, so to me, like maintaining humility at 8 years sober is about like accepting my shortcomings as they are presented to me. So, like we've been talking about taking suggestions and you never get to choose the message, like whether it's good or bad. Like the humility comes from that recognition and keeping that on the forefront of my mind. Like to me, the real humility comes from, somebody saying, like my girl being like, hey babe, you just gotta like not get that angry. And it's up to me to be humble enough to say, yeah, I guess you're right. I shouldn't get that angry. To me, that's what humility looks like today in my life. Taking suggestions, like it's literally what you guys are talking about. It's taking suggestions about everything, not just taking suggestions about my addiction recovery. It's taking suggestions on all recovery. Like if someone gives me a suggestion, I should consider it and take it. I should not, disregard it or whatever the case may be, regardless of who the messenger is, because a lot of the time I won't be humble. I'll be arrogant because I don't like the person who's telling me this message, but I don't get to choose where the message comes from. So I don't get to choose who's going to deliver it. You see what I'm saying? So that's what it looks like to me today, if that makes sense. So accepting my failures in everyday situations. That would be my answer. Any other questions, comments, concerns about class so far or anything? That was a great question, man.
A little bit before we went on break, we were talking about. I remember the first couple of times I was in and hearing about the guy, listening to a guy say, man, he's been here like 9, 10 times. I think, man, this guy just must have no ability or intelligence whatsoever. And then next thing you know, I'm there and beyond. After we're sitting in, last one in particular, they were talking about some guys that have been there the first time. They're like, not realizing how many times I've been there, talking about another person and saying, man, he's been there 9 times, this guy's never going to get it. And I'm like, be careful. I'm in my head, I'm like, be careful, because I was that arrogant, younger than I am now. But I remember thinking the same things, like, man, this guy's just never going to get it. What's wrong with him? And then, like, every bit of my arrogance and my thinking that I can manipulate this to fit the recovery my way has been, I've been humiliated to the point that I have no question that I cannot do this, on my own. No matter how smart I think I am, what I can do this, I can do that. Well, this is one thing I can't do for sure. So, I think part of the reason why I've been so stubborn is I always thought I was smarter than the next addict, or like, I'm gonna figure this thing out. And then in the beginning, I thought, yeah, I'd be able to, I should be able to drink again once I get this under control. And that was my arrogance the first time, to where I got to the point, like I said, 18 months, and then I was like, okay, I got this. Well, not the hard way, but it took over and over, just beating my arrogance completely out of me, to where I'm just like, I'm helpless to this. I can't do this. The way my thinking goes. I mean, it's what it is. It took that many times to finally beat me into submission, so to speak. Thank God I didn't lose everything on the way. I could have. I lost a lot, but I didn't lose everything.
Yeah, man, I don't really know what like as you were sharing, it made me think about like, where did I start taking suggestions? Like, how did I start listening to people? Like, when did I start getting out of my own way? And like, like as you were sharing, I was thinking like trying to think like as far back as I could as to when did I start understanding that I don't know everything and I don't have all the answers. And if I don't start listening to people and telling them that they're right, like I might not keep on getting this information. I might have more problems. That probably started with my dad. Um, there was a point where my dad was telling me things and it just kept on coming true. And he would keep on saying, "Don't do this, don't do that. That's a bad idea. Don't do blah blah blah." And I just would continuously disregard, what he's saying, and I wouldn't listen to him, and I wouldn't take the suggestion. And everything he said always came true. Always. There was never a time my dad told me what an outcome. Don't hang out with these people. They're bad for you. Bro, guess what? They were bad for me. Don't do this. That's not going to work out for you. They were. He was right every single fucking time. And I remember one day he said to me, and this is what made me, I was thinking of when you were sharing. He said, I was going snowmobiling. So earlier that day, me and a bunch of friends, we had stolen speakers from Walmart and we returned them for money. And we got a bunch of money and we had a big plan to get drugs and go up to New Hampshire and go snowmobiling. So we got the money or whatever. And I go to my house to grab clothes. I've never been snowmobiling before. So I go to my house to get clothes ready. I get my boots, my jacket, my overalls. Like, bro, if anybody's from up north, you got gear, dude, when it's wintertime. So I'm all geared up. And right before I go out the door, my dad says, "Bring a life jacket." And I bring a fucking life jacket. Yeah, sure, dude. And I just jetted and I left. No life jacket. Well, later on that night, I ended up falling. Long story short, I ended up falling through a frozen lake, and me and a couple other people, we had to swim out and then walk like a mile and a half back to shore. And we all almost died. I could go into grave detail about it, but I'm not going to. And dude, I almost died. And he told me to bring a life jacket. And I fell through the lake. And I did not, there was nothing you could have said to me like that could have told me that I was going to die that day. There's no indication that I was going to die that day. And I was like as close to death as I have ever been. And it's like, as you're sharing, I said to myself, how it made me think about how grateful that I am for an opportunity to have a dad to tell me things, dude. Like some people don't have dads. Some people never had a dad. Some people's dads passed away. Some people's dads like aren't a part of their life. You know what I mean? And it's like they don't have someone to say, wear a life jacket. They don't have someone to say, you can't fucking do that. You don't talk to people like that. You don't fucking do that shit. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's not their fault that they never learned these things. It's a flaw. They just never, they were never, it was just never produced to them. It was never, that message was never brought to these people because they were never raised in an environment where actual good suggestions are provided. And they don't know where to get these suggestions. And it makes me say something like, I'm really grateful to have a fucking dad. You know what I mean? For my whole life, who's been there my whole life, And it makes me think to myself, well, are there other people in my life that have been giving me a message that I may be disregarding or bitter towards? Like there was a time where I used to resent my dad and I hated him. And I wouldn't, and I could have kicked him off forever and never gotten those suggestions, Maybe I could be grateful for, sponsorship. So there's people out there who don't have a sponsor. They don't have someone to talk to or ping pong ideas off of. I could be grateful for, a therapist. Is it possible to be grateful that I actually got arrested? It's like really opening your mind to opportunities I've had to get sober and seeing these as opportunities, not as shut the fuck up, Dad. You don't know what you're fucking talking about. This is bullshit. You guys are actually going to arrest me. It's like I said, maybe opening our fucking eyes to like the reality of the situation. And you know what? That's why it's called a spiritual awakening. Because bro, you need to be awakened in that moment to say, wow, man, like I fucked up. It took me almost dying to say, dude, he's right. I should have brought a fucking life jacket. You know, and it's like, what's it going to take before we say, you know what? They were right in rehab. I should have fucking listened. I should have fucking been paying attention. I should have kept my focus on what the fuck was happening in front of me and around me instead of, thinking about what I'm going to do after or being on my phone or fucking some other shit, dude. Who knows what? Whatever's taking me away from the moment that I'm currently present in. And are these bad things taking me away from them? No, dude. I'm not going to say that they're always bad things. But I mean, you only get so much time in life. Your average person only lives 80 fucking years in the United States of America. So just equate how much time you have left. And in that amount of time, you only have so much attention. Do you know that? You can't focus on two things at once. You can only focus on one thing at once. You can only look at one thing at a time. And generally what you're looking at attains all your focus. Like your visualization of the world is like the most prominent thing that probably impacts your brain. Seeing is believing, right? So if I am spending, if you look at your phone, most people, does anybody track their data on their phone, right? Your average person in America uses their phone and looks at their phone for 5.5 hours a day. So if someone's on that's your focus. You have your phone. Think about all the things that are battling for your attention on a daily basis, dude. Your phone, other people, the TV, the commercials, the advertisement, the billboards, everything trying to get your attention, dude, which you don't get back. It's very important what you focus on, because what you focus on may just determine where you end up in life. If someone let's say somebody takes 10 years or 8 years to focus on, let's say, I don't know, the brain and behavior. What do we call those people? Psychologists, right? If somebody spends 8 years, let me just say this real quick. If somebody spends 8 years of educating themselves in like higher education, maybe they become doctors. Maybe we call those people doctors. If somebody spends 8 years focused on the getting and using and finding ways and means to get more alcohol, what do you think we call that person? You know what I'm saying?
Recovery coach.
Hell yeah, dude. That's a good one, right? Or maybe a fucking addict, dude. Or an alcoholic, something like that. Well, that's where all my attention and focus has been. What do you think my brain's going to think a lot about? Maybe it's going to obsess about it, You ever seen somebody lose their vape?
Oh yeah.
You ever seen the state of mind somebody gets in? You ever, dude? One thing that I'm really grateful for is I gave my phone up when I went to rehab. That was a tough one. Anybody ever do that? Raise your hand if you've done that. That's a crazy feeling, isn't it? You get it back and you're like, whoa, this is fucking crazy. I can do anything with this. I can just like do anything, man. Now, maybe, dude, I'd make videos on, like, if you want to follow me on TikTok, I have a TikTok called 1 Minute Meetings where I put meetings out there and stuff like that. And and I'll like post videos and people will be like, I don't know why this is on my For You page. This is weird. Right? Like, yo, they are scrolling through social media, having a spiritual awakening from seeing some fucking video that I made, dude. You don't know what's that? Sorry.
Yeah, I used to scroll on Instagram whenever I was initially first started using it, and it kept popping up with ads. It's like, need help with opioid addiction? I was like, no.
Even our algorithm knows we need help with our addiction, dude. Our For You page is like, bro, you need to go to rehab. And we're like, don't show me this content. Show me more trap music. Show me more alcohol songs with a guy riding a truck and a dog in his bucket seat. Like, imagine starting a brand new YouTube account. Brand new, fully fresh, right? And you type in alcohol. Bing. And you do that 8 times a day. Alcohol. Bing. 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 After you do that for, let's say, 4 years, what do you think your suggested videos are going to be? Do you think
rehabs?
Maybe it's rehabs. Maybe it's like alcohol and then all of a sudden, right? Let's say you randomly type in cat. So after typing in alcohol for 10 years, let's say you type in rehab once. It's going to be like alcohol in rehab, alcohol. It's not going to immediately suggest rehabs. It's going to suggest alcohol and rehabs.
I didn't even have to search up the rehab for rehabs getting suggested either. I had like Landmark Recovery pop up a whole bunch of times. So I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah, yep. That's my most popular video on 1 Minute Meetings is what is rehab? People want to know that ends up on the most people's For You pages. Now, keep in mind, okay, that is called, drum roll, artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence. Artificial. It's artificial, right? You know what you are? You are natural intelligence. Wow. You're basic ass pumpkin spice intelligence. That's what you are. You're the same amount of intelligence as everyone else. Which means that there's artificial intelligence and there's normal intelligence, right? Like you take sugar, there's sugar and there's artificial sugar. Your body responds the same way, doesn't really know the difference between artificial, except maybe just tastes different, right? The same thing with intelligence. There's artificial intelligence and there's normal intelligence. There's ways to learn things, right? And you can do that artificially and you can do that normally. Like the same way that you're typing alcohol into your algorithm is the same way we're typing that into our fucking biology by drinking every day. That is the typing it into our algorithm. And the exposure in addition to that, right? That is that's the natural way of getting that algorithm to play out in our brain. Yes. So, welcome back. Welcome.
Can you repeat all of that, please?
No, you're good. You're good. In a short, I will shortly summarize it that the same way your algorithm works on your YouTube page, it's the same way your brain works. So if you type things into your brain, it's going to come out. It's going to show up. Type things into your algorithm, it's going to show up. Now we're going to talk about the message of recovery a little bit. Okay. I'm going to end with a video that leads us to how we end to a place like this with Dr. Father Martin. I hope you guys enjoy it. And if any of this like algorithm and focus and all that stuff is, if you're interested in it or want to know more about it, please keep coming back to Fridays. We have till 4, but I usually let you guys out early because it's Friday and nobody wants to stay until 4. But that's when I'm usually here. So keep on coming back, because next week we're going to learn all about the brain, addiction, and how this all really comes together. We're kind of summarizing it now on a different aspect, but we're going to get into more grave detail next week. Let me share this screen. Many of us recall the first time we heard the words, "You never have to use again if you don't want to." For many of us, hearing this message was shocking. Perhaps we'd never thought in terms of having to use before. And we're surprised to find out just how much truth that statement held. Of course, we thought using drugs ceased to be a choice for me a long time ago. Although just hearing this message may or may not have resulted in us immediately getting clean, we still heard the message. Someone carried it to us. Now, although we went to rehab before, although people may have told us we were an addict years ago, or we had a problem with our drinking years ago, right? Although all of that may have happened, we still may not have immediately gotten clean. Even though we didn't immediately get clean, even though we ended up making the wrong decision, and whatever the case may be, we still heard the message. There was still a moment of us, even though when that 23-year-old kid who is addicted to heroin sat across from me from the table and said, "I'm never going to use again," even though he said that and it changed my whole life, I still didn't get clean then, but I still remember it. Somebody carried that message to me. Some of us had experience of believing that we could stay clean in NA, but when it came to recovery, that seemed beyond us. Gaining a sense of self-respect, making friends, being able to carry ourselves out in the real world without it being obvious that we were addicts, all seemed like more than we could actually expect from this type of program. The day we began to believe that this program could do more for us than just help us stay clean was a tune we remember as a turning point in our recovery. What happened to give us that sense of hope was that someone gave us a reason to believe. Maybe it was someone sharing at a meeting with whom we identified in a very personal way. Maybe it was the cumulative effects of hearing many addicts share that recovery was possible. Maybe it was the unconditional love and quiet instance of our sponsor that we could recover. In whichever way we heard it, it was the message and someone carried it to us, right? So when we get this message, how we get this message, maybe it was just from some random person sharing in a meeting that we didn't know. Maybe it was from a friend that we had a relationship with, and it was just the time and the place, and they sat me down and talked to me in a loving and caring way, intervening almost. That was the way that I received the message. Maybe you just kept on getting the same message over and over and over from different people in different places, and it just took me this long to get the message and recognize that this was the message I'm supposed to get. It doesn't matter how we got it, some way this message had been carried to us. Some of us have the experience of staying clean for a long time and finding joy in recovery. Then we experience a tragedy. Maybe it's a breakup of a long-term committed relationship or death of a loved one. Maybe it's the relapse and death of someone with whom we had been friends with. Maybe it's we find ourselves destitute. Maybe it's simply that we realize that other people in recovery aren't perfect, and so they're capable of hurting us. Because of whatever crisis we've experienced, we find that we've lost our faith. We no longer believe that this program holds the answers for us. The bargain we thought we'd made, we'd stay clean and try to do the right thing, and consequently our lives would be happy, had been breached, and we were left wondering about our purpose in life all over again. At some point, we began to believe again. Maybe somebody had been through the same crisis, reached out to us, and helped us through in a way no one else could have. Again, someone carried the message to us. What are the different ways you've experienced the message of recovery?
Mostly through personal stories
Personal stories
of others.
of others, yeah. Personal stories. Anybody else? What are the different ways in which you've experienced the message? Like,
Unfortunately, seeing the failures of others too. I mean, I don't know if that's along the line of what you're looking for, but I've experienced myself the experience of how important it is for recovery because the outcome is either death or jail. I mean, it's one or the other.
have you ever been to jail?
Yeah, quite a few times.
Okay. For alcohol or drug related things?
Everything was alcohol. Every single time I was arrested was for alcohol.
Right. Anybody ever bro, you ever go to the doctor and you tell the doctor how much you drink, or you tell the doctor you smoke cigarettes? What's the first fucking thing they say? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the message, dude. And you'd think that you'd take it because it's from a doctor. I don't want my doctor to tell me to quit drinking and smoking cigarettes. I want my doctor to tell me he's writing me a prescription for Percocets. That's what I want. I'm so jaded with drugs and alcohol that I can't even see the message that's being presented to me. These people are sharing their story and I don't see it, right? Now, why didn't I see it, right? Why didn't I see it when I was in jail? Why didn't I see it when the doctor told me to quit? Why didn't I see it when my family and friends were talking to me, right? It all comes down to admitting we are an addict. At that time, I was not willing to admit that I had a problem. I was not willing to admit that I had a problem with drugs or alcohol or anything like that. Like when I was having the issues with jail, I was just saying, dude, the only reason I got into that fight was because that guy fucking started it. You know, the only reason that I fucking have these problems because she's a bitch. When you go back and you realize she was telling me that she wants me to stop selling drugs. She's like, I can't start a family with you if you're gonna sell drugs. And I was like, well, I don't have any other way of making money. So I mean, so here I am. That's a message that I'm not open to seeing because I haven't admitted that I'm an addict. I haven't came to terms with my addiction. Like, do you remember when people were trying to tell you that you were an addict and you didn't admit that you weren't there yet? What's that like, Donovan?
So whenever this was like right around the first time I went to treatment, my mom was like, so for a while she's been I pull up to the house and I'd like fall asleep in the car with the car still on while I was smoking a blunt or something like that. And then my mom would come out at like 1 or 2 in the morning with the early car on with the headlights on. She'd be like, "Storm, wake up." And I'd be like, open the door and I'd be like, "Oh, my bad. I was just sitting out there texting someone on the road. Fell asleep." And she was like, "Okay, just go inside." So I went inside, fell asleep. That happened like 3 or 4 times. And then one day, I forgot to throw all my pills away, and I wake up to my mom leaning over me and like, "What's this?" And I was like, "Huh? I don't know." And she was like, "Well, I'm in the medical field. I know what Percocet looks like." Like, okay, great. There was like 70 of them just sprawled across my bed.
Damn.
Yeah, and my mom was like, "You go to treatment." I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, you're addicted to this stuff." And so she locked me in the house for a while. And then I started withdrawing, kept me locked in the house to get it done with this one. The day that she like let me go out, the first thing I did was picked up and like started using again because I didn't think I was an addict. I thought I just like, or I just got like in the habit of like doing way too much for whatever. And so I picked up again. Then a couple days later, I had gone like a couple days. Like I used that one day that I just got out. Went a couple days without using it, and then one day I wake up, did like a little bit, and right after I did that little amount, my mom calls me and said, "Are you able to take a drug test?" And I was like, "Phenomenal." I was like, "Yeah, but you're not going to be pleased with the result." And she was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Yeah, it's going to be dirty drop." And she was like, "All right, well, you're going to treatment whether you want to or not." I was like, "No, I'm not." And so she still sent me anyways. I was like, "I'm not an addict." So even through treatment, like, I was goofed off the whole time and was still kind of like denying the fact that I was an addict. And then got out and I had a bottle of 90 Xanax in my center console and eating them a whole bunch. As soon as you start eating one, you start eating the whole fucking bottle. And I got found in, my mom had found my iPhone location or whatever. And I was in a nursing home parking lot for like 6 hours, she said, before she noticed it. Or she had noticed it and I was like, "Oh, that's kind of weird. Maybe just pull her, answer a call or something." And then like 6 hours later, because she's a nurse practitioner, so she didn't have a whole bunch of time to like be on her phone at work. So 6 hours later, she like checks in. She's like, "Okay." So she has my grandparents come and they like knock on the window and wake me up. And I like looked out because obviously Xanax, you're gonna go on a Xan page and you get woken up or something, some inconvenience. And that's when I was like, "Yeah, that's what it said. Yeah, I'm an addict. 100%.
Mm. So now, I'm sure people can like find similarities in the story. Like this question goes to you, Donovan, and everybody else. When did you first start? I guess like that's how you started hearing the message that you're an addict and started admitting it and accepting it. When did you start admitting and accepting that recovery is the solution to your addiction?
Oh, the first time I went to treatment, I had assumed that was a solution since I'd seen people there, like the workers and stuff. That's what worked for them. So I was like, I mean, it's got to work if these people have got like 10 or whatever years under the belt. Like, it's got to work, but I don't think I'm really an addict or anything like that. Like, I don't really have a problem. I only used for like maybe 3 months, something like that, since I first picked up. And I was like, there's no way I can just like turn to an addict. Like, and apparently that's how it works. And so that was weird. But yeah, after I was found in that parking lot, went to the hospital. Apparently, you can't tell the nurse that since I was in my car, I said, she was like, "You're lucky you didn't drive and fall asleep." And I was like, "Yeah, I could have easily Paul Walkered that bitch." And she was like, oh, you need to go to a behavioral hospital. I was like, what for? She's like, that's a suicidal sentence or whatever. And I was like,
Ideation or whatever.
no, that's a joke. Like, I didn't say that. That's not intended. Like, if I would have fallen asleep and was driving, I would have fallen over it. You can't deny that. And still had to go there, and they said it was a suicidal overdose.
Mm.
And I didn't even know it.
Wow, dude. Yeah, that's so then you had to go do like a against your will stint at like a mental place. Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, 72-hour hold.
Mhm.
Got brought to the PHP I was just at like a week prior and started doing that. After I got out of there again, I stayed sober for like a good 8-9 months, something like that. And then shit just they act like sobriety, like your life's gonna be so good, this, that, and when I got out, I was working some warehouse job where they were just working me to death, and it was like 4 on, and you have 3 days off. And those 3 days, like the last day, I might have some energy, but the first 2 days was just straight recovery. My body is shaped and conditioned.
Mhm.
And so, like, I was doing that for that entire 8 or 9 month stint, and then I just like got super depressed, it was suicidal and shit, and picked up some powdered fentanyl and took an overdose on it, and that didn't work. I ended up waking up, and then my mom, like, hey mom, I fucked up and shit. Like, what do you mean? I was like, well, I just picked up some heroin and tried to overdose, and she was like, oh shit, are you okay? I'm like, yeah. And she was like, all right, are you good to drive? And I was like, yeah. And so she was like, all right, cool. So, and I was good to drive, and I'm driving, and some dude pulls off of the side road onto this one-way road, almost like it was really not almost. He went into my lane, so I had to like kind of like come off the road and the sidewalk. One of those little like sidewalk lamps with like my car hit it and flipped the car in the middle of this intersection. And then there was like 2,000 Yu-Gi-Oh cards like scattered across this intersection.
Mm. Jesus, dude.
Yeah.
So there are. Thank you for sharing, man. But it sounds like you always like you never didn't believe. Like once you were exposed to the message that you could be clean, being sober is possible. You weren't closed-minded to that. Like you were open to that. Okay, cool.
I was, but like I had no social life with that job. Like it was just straight work, 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 and that's all. Like
Mm-hmm.
couldn't like go see my friends, go do the things that I enjoyed doing, and I wasn't even using it at the time. So it's not like I was putting all my time and energy into like trying to do or get drugs or whatever, sell drugs, etc.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing it just trying to continue working and like having my body get some rest on the days off. So it was less than enjoyable, and I just thought that's how my life was going to be on from then on. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to be doing this shit for long.
So there's the spiritual awakening of discovering that we are an addict. And the message that's generally pushed on us is yes, you are an addict. You have a problem with alcohol. Sometimes it's jail, hospital, arrest, problems in relationship, financial problems, et cetera, that are prompting this message. But then this message that we're talking about in the 12th step is a spiritual awakening as a result of working the steps, right? Maybe this is a different type of message that recovery is possible. More change is possible. You can be a better person. You can be more serene. You can make better decisions, right? And that's the message that starts feeding us to this spiritual awakening, right? Like, wow, maybe this does work. Maybe I can be sober. Maybe I can have this, maybe I do deserve these things. Maybe I can have this happen, right? And that's the message that we're trying to really get across once we start this process of recovery and first begin admitting that we're an addict. The message that we're trying to say can be broken down very simply. It's that we can stay clean, that we can recover, and that there is hope. Thinking about the times we heard the message personally will provide part of that answer as to why we should now carry the message, but there is more. So now, even if you have one day sober, there's still a message that you can carry. We can keep what we have only by giving it away. This saying is perhaps the most powerful reason we can present for carrying the message. Many of us wonder, though, exactly how this concept works. It's simple, really. We reinforce our recovery by sharing it with others. When we tell some people who go to meetings regularly stay clean, we are more likely to apply and practice to our own recovery. When we tell someone that the answer is in the steps, we are more likely to look there ourselves. When we tell newcomers to get a sponsor, we are more likely to stay in touch with our own. There are probably at least many ways to carry the message as there are recovering addicts. Greeting a newcomer that we met at previous night's meetings and remembering his or her names is a powerful and extraordinarily welcoming to an addict who feels alone. Opening a meeting makes sure that there is a place for the message to be carried. Taking on a service position in any capacity helps keep the program itself going. We can do a great deal of good if we approach our service to the fellowship in a caring, loving, and humble way. Sponsoring addicts brings life to the therapeutic value of one addict helping another. What kind of service work do I do to carry the message? I'm assuming nobody really does service work, but perhaps your favorite way to carry the message is to talk to somebody, to share with them, to share in the meeting, to share your personal experience. But for the sake of time, I'm just going to continue on to the questions that I really want to ask. Sometimes it's challenging to carry the message. The person with whom we've decided to share the message seems unable to hear it. This can range from someone who keeps relapsing to someone who keeps choosing destructive behavior. It's tempting to think that our efforts are being wasted and we should just give up on such a person. Before we make such a decision, we should think about all the mitigating circumstances. Say we're sponsoring someone who just isn't following our direction. We've suggested a writing assignment, and we don't hear from the person until a fresh crisis is brewing. We've shared with all the enthusiasm we can summon about our own experience in the situation the person is facing, explaining in great detail how our disease was present and how we used the steps to find recovery. But our sponsee keeps doing the same destructive thing over and over again. This can be frustrating. But before we give up, we need to remember that our choice isn't whether to carry the message, but how. You may look back on your recovery or your active addiction or whatever and resent the way that people talk to you about your addiction. You may resent the way people came up to you and had these discussions, or the way they presented it, or resent the police or whatever the case may be. Hey, dude, I totally understand that, but they're dealing with it the best way they knew how to deal with it, right? If they knew of a better way to carry the message to you, I'm assuming they would. But maybe the way that they carry the message now is the only way they know how to carry the message as a result of what the relationship has been like over an extended period of time. Right? Like maybe your family originally used to be like, hey, maybe you should try to go to rehab. I think that would be a good idea. Maybe you should try that. Or now maybe they're saying, dude, just go to fucking rehab. At this point, they're just like, dude, just go to rehab, go to a meeting, just call your sponsor, just do these things. You know what I mean? Just do what works. It's no longer like, hey, this might be a nice idea. And people say, why are you talking to me like that? How come you're like being like this to me? Why aren't you like supportive? And this, that, because, dude, I'm over it. We tried to support you. It doesn't work. It's like I don't get to choose the way the message is being brought to me. It used to be brought to me like, hey, it's going to be okay. Now it's brought to me like, dude, you have a bunch of shit that you need to fix. Go get that shit done. And I mean, I can't be mad at someone else for giving me that new message, because I probably play a part in the way that they're presenting it to me. We need to get our own egos out of the way. We don't get to take credit or blame for someone else's recovery. And this is including like other people who don't know how to support us. We simply present the message as positively as we can and remain available to help when we're asked. We also need to remember that we can't possibly know what's going on in another person's mind or spirit. Our message may seem to be missing its mark, but perhaps the person just isn't ready to hear it today. Like maybe you want to make amends. Maybe you want to rush out there and say you're sorry for all the things you've done. I'm sorry. I realized that I was ruining our marriage. I was ruining our relationship. I'm so sorry. I now recognize it. Hey, maybe you want to rush out and do that, but you need to remember you don't know what's going on in that other person's mind. Even though you've been married to him for 30 years or whatever the case may be, you don't know how they're recovering through this process. You don't know if they're ready to hear that. You don't know if they're ready to forgive you yet. So seeking forgiveness at this time, it may not be the time to actually do that. Our message may seem to be missing its mark, or perhaps a person isn't ready to hear it today. It may be that the words we spoke will stay with a person for a long time and may resurface at the exact right moment. If we think about it, we can recall the things we heard other people say when we were new and didn't understand at the time, but which rose up in our minds years later and gave us reason to hope or a solution to a problem we were experiencing. We carry the message and share it freely, but we cannot ever force another person to get the message. The principle that applies to our fellowship public relations policy, attraction, not promotion, applies very well to our personal efforts to carry the message too. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, but you can make him thirsty. It may also be the case that we're not the best person to sponsor someone. Individuals have different needs and learn in different ways. Some people may thrive with one sponsor, but don't do well with another one because they have different sponsorship styles. Some sponsors give a lot of writing assignments. Some are very insistent that they go to a certain number of meetings. Some are very proactive, while others may simply respond to the sponsee's stated needs. No type is better or worse than another. They're just different. Another time we might find it hard to carry the message or even receive the message is when we're not feeling very positive about life or recovery. It's probably our first impulse to go to a meeting and dump all our problems out so we can purge them from our own spirits. But meetings exist to provide a place to carry the message. Dumping our problems without tying them to recovery or trying to make it clear what the message is doesn't further our primary purpose. We can carry the message even if we just point out that they're having terrible problems but are not using over it, and that we're attending a meeting and reaching out to work on our recovery. In most cases, though, the best way to carry the message is to focus on the newcomers in the room and tell them what's good about recovery. We should also keep in mind that sometimes, no matter how long we've been clean, we need to hear the message. And if we sit quietly in a meeting, we have a good chance of doing so. What's the difference between attraction rather than promotion? Like, what does that mean?
You see it in other people. You see recovery work for other people that you may have known in active addiction. You see how good their life is. So then you make them to be attracted to recovery. Yeah.
Did you ever experience something like that?
No, I know nobody in my family does recovery or we know about recovery. Never heard about recovery, so I came here myself. So yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? Like, what does attraction rather than promotion mean?
I think attraction is people want what you have, so they want years of sobriety, you've had years of sobriety. Whereas promotion is somebody trying to sell it to you or shove it down your throat.
Okay. Right. Why is attraction better than promotion with recovery?
People, I think, are more apt to observe someone who walks the walk and they just talk the talk.
Okay.
And the people I've been most impressed with is, it's like the whole attraction thing. Of watch how they live, what's done in their lives. It's not somebody that's going to tell me, do this, you got to do 12 steps, and that's it. I want to observe and see what they're going to talk about this, and I want to see that it's actually had an impression on the fact on their life, rather than just telling me, here's the 12 steps, you need to follow this. Well, that's all fine and good, but it's things, they're proven by their lifestyle, their actions, what's done for them, kind of thing.
Now, how can we prevent ourselves from promoting recovery, but instead attracting it, right? I think this goes with sharing, carrying our message to the addict that still suffers. When the best message that you got from people was when we admitted we had a problem. That was when we were most receptive to the message. When we didn't admit we had a problem, that's when we're unable to see it. We're unable to admit it. Now, what makes someone an addict? You may look at someone who's a heavy user but has not admitted they have a problem with addiction. You try to carry the message of recovery to them, it's going to go in one ear and out the other. They're not going to fucking listen to it. You know what I mean? But if they admit that they have a drinking problem, they may be more open-minded and open to the message that you have to. It may attract them to recovery, you see? Like people who promotion to me is like trying to be attractive to people who don't find it attractive. You know what I mean? So to attract someone, maybe for recovery, maybe like to talk about recovery to someone who wants to know about it, wants to learn about it. And in order for someone like an addict to reach out to someone who's an addict in recovery, like an active person in active addiction, to reach out to someone in active recovery, you need to believe that they're in active recovery. You know what I mean? They should be walking the walk, not just talking the talk. And we should represent that too, just because somebody did that for us. There's going to be a time where we're going to have to do that for someone else. Like that's how this message of recovery is continued to be carried, right? So people know it's even possible, it's even conceivable. And somebody did that for us. Here I am doing it for you. You know what I mean? I'm here like, hey, it's possible. You don't have to do it. You know what I mean? I mean, all these doors are open. You can leave any time you want. You don't have to be in this rehab. But for some reason, we have come to believe that it should be here. And one thing that I try to do in my groups, at least, is carry a message that recovery's fun, dude. It's worth it. You know what I mean? You don't have to do it. There's many different ways to do it, but I think it's worth it and it's fun. And if you want an easy way to learn how to do it, try working a 12-step program. It's just an easy, simple way to do it. I'm not fucking promoting it or anything like that. It's just really fucking easy, easier than trying to do it on my own. And I can carry this message to you guys because everybody in here admitted that they were an addict. That's how you got in this room. That's the only reason that you're here is because you admitted that you had a problem with drugs and alcohol. And now trying to carry the message to someone who has not admitted they're an addict is like trying to carry the message to trying to carry the message of parenthood to someone who has no plans on having kids. Right in one ear and out the other. You know what I mean? So trying to talk to someone who hasn't admit that they have a problem with addiction about recovery it's just going to go in one ear and out the other. It's not going to work, you know? Now, it's difficult to really understand the spiritual awakening as a result of working the steps at this point for some of us. But the main point is to understand the spiritual awakening. There is no telling when it's going to happen. There is no telling how moments in your life are going to impact your future. And the humility comes from being open to any moment, any opportunity that is in front of me, both good and bad, as an opportunity to be a better person. When all the other times we've taken opportunities, instead of focusing on being a better person, to literally focus on the getting and using and finding ways and means to get more alcohol. Like literally, dude. And we've become amazing at that. We became professionals at it. We became so good at it that we have to get medical treatment and clinical help to remove how good we are at it. So when we come back on Friday next week, I got a text message as a reminder that you guys will be closed on New Year's Day. So there will be just a reminder. I got someone, Donnie wanted me to remind you guys that LAC will be closed Monday for New Year's. One thing I would like to say is that this is your last few days in 2023. 2024 is coming up, baby. This is big shit. You know what I mean? Big moves. I hope you plan out your year. Maybe next week we'll do something like that. I'll teach you how to do that. But take time to reflect on what you would like your year to be. Your year last year may not have been the year for you. You know what I mean? Let's make this year the year for you. And we're starting it off fresh with step one. Next week, we're going to talk about, just like we said, the only thing that prevents someone from getting the help is admitting they're an addict. Once you've had the spiritual awakening, oh my God, I'm an addict as a result of getting too high too often. The next step is admitting you're powerless over your addiction and that your life has become unmanageable. And that is where we are going to begin next week when I come in and we're going to talk about addiction, mental obsession, physical withdrawal, the whole nine. Didn't get to show you that video with Dr. Father Martin. That's fine. That video actually goes with a class next week or the week after. So you would probably just be seeing it twice, or I would probably be like, hey, did I ever show you guys that video with Dr. Father Martin? And you'd be like, yeah. Anybody listen to that meditation podcast I recommended last week?
I started it, man. It's 4 hours and 21 minutes. I didn't finish it. But the next time I see you, I will have it finished.
How far did you get?
30 minutes.
It's good, bro. It's good, though. I'm sure the first 30 minutes.
And I recommended it to my pops, too. He smashed the whole thing in one go. So
what did he say, dude?
Yeah. Oh, man. He just texted me all kinds of stuff about it. And then he was like, what did you think? And I waited 2 days to respond because I hadn't finished it. I was recommending stuff I haven't even watched, you know? So I was all in my head about that. And then I was like, I won't see 30 minutes of that.
Bro. Dog, he watched it the whole way through, one fucking sitting, huh?
Yes. Yeah. He does shit like that, though. He's a weirdo.
I guess I'm weird too, because I did the same. I did the same shit, yo. I listened to it my whole way to group. I talked about it the entire group, and then I drove my whole way home and listened to it. So yeah. I'm the same way. So, but yeah, definitely take time to listen to that because all that goes into what we're going to be talking about next week and shit.
Yeah.
Awesome, bro. I'm definitely going to follow up with you on that. So, all right, y'all. Have a happy New Year's. Thank you so much for an amazing, outstanding discussion. And I cannot wait. I can't wait to. I'm very much looking forward to hanging out with you guys next week. Can't wait. So take care. Have a great New Year's.
Thank you, too.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. And you too.